Hey, this is your boy the dog coming at you from the Devil's Butthole, or what I like to call I-4. If you live in Central Florida, you completely understand where I'm at on that. I-4 is constantly known for being one of the most damn frickin' pain-in-the-ass highways there ever could be. But I-4 also happens to be where I spend about 2 hours of my day every day. So I've decided I'm going to start taking advantage of the time. And did a little rant video last week. So figured, you know what? Let's throw another one at you guys while I'm doing my drives. Because unfortunately, I'm kind of expanding work-wise. And I just have not had time to get to the range and do some video stuff. So you're stuck with my rants for now. But I'm hoping to get back on the range and shoot some content. And get some stuff at you guys here soon. But I wanted to kind of talk about something that's kind of been on my mind. And it's something I've actually kind of small talked with a lot of my students about over the years, but especially more and more recently. And to kind of set context on this, you know, I've been a gun guy pretty much my entire adult life, ever since I've been old enough to buy guns. I grew up around guns, had family in law enforcement, and, you know, family that hunted, stuff like that. And I've now been an instructor for over a decade, and I'm consider myself a consumer of gun content, whether it be YouTube videos or being around ranges and talking with people and just being that people that loves talking with people. But I'm a firm believer the gun community is its own worst enemy. You know, and as we live in a time where, you know, politics kind of reigns supreme of how we divide individuals. You know, I think it's interesting to look at the gun community as well, because even within the gun community, we kind of have our own little Democrat and Republican, you know, and not from the stance of politics, but just belief systems. And I'll kind of sell my message here on a couple different things. YouTube. Let's be real. YouTube has become probably the primary platform for gun advertising. And, you know, when you look at companies releasing new guns, they don't care about doing guns and ammo articles and stuff like that anymore. No, they send, you know, T&E guns to 80 different influencers. And every time a gun gets released, you know, you see 1,000 videos on YouTube hit all in the same hour. So realistically, YouTube has become kind of the public gun range, if you will, for learning firearms. And I do think it's funny how within that YouTube community, there's became a lot of hate. You know, you hear the term shill all the time. You know, people are being shills. And, you know, if you ever read comments within a gun video, God damn, there's hateful people. But, you know, the gun community, for a community that we try to, you know, be professional and you know, be our own community, we really do kind of just eat our own and consume our own very heavily. It's kind of sad to see. But, you know, like all this crap with Grand Thumb, you know, if you guys are on YouTube, you know, you've seen a lot over the Grand Thumb drama, or, you know, different ones that want to talk smack on, you know, well, they've got advertisers. And, well, yeah, if you're trying to do this for a living, of course you're going to have advertisers. You know, and don't get me wrong, are there people on YouTube that I think have been bought and are probably talking crap or refuse to talk crap on certain companies because of who's sending them checks or even free guns and stuff? Sure. But consume responsibly. You know, I mean, every industry is going to have that. But the fact that we're so quick to throw people under the bus, when realistically, I mean, if we were in their shoes, you know, like I joke with people, you know, when on the politic aspect, you know, everybody wants to talk crap on the rich, but nobody would turn down a briefcase full of $1 million. You know, you want to be that rich, you know, Bezos or whatever. Well, who the hell in the gun community would not want to get paid to go shoot guns all day? You know, you look at these Honest Outlaws or Grand Thumbs or Such or, you know, all these guys. Who the hell wouldn't want that job? Send me guns, I go shoot them, I tell you my opinion. Who the hell wouldn't want that? And does that come with, I'm not going to go as far as saying you sell your soul to the devil, but does that mean you got to learn to play the game a little bit? Of course it does. So you know what? Don't hate the player. Hate the game. It is what it is. But even other aspects of our community, look at how much we divide ourselves. You have the tactical community that talks crap on hunting community. But even with that, you have hunters that, want to talk crap on, well, why do we need AR-15s? Well, you know what? Gun rights are gun rights. Second Amendment wasn't for deer hunters. And even within that, the AK community that hates the AR community or vice versa. The Glock community that wants to crap on 1911 community. Just be happy people are shooting. Be happy that people want to go to the range and defend themselves. And I know I've, talked smack on, cheaper guns and crappy guns. Well, I think that's just irresponsible from if you're going to, sign up to do something, do it right. And that's my opinion. And people would say, you know what? If all you can afford is that high point and that's what you want to defend yourself with, do it. And I'll roll with that. But if you are going to be training people and teaching people, I do think it is important to push the concept of get quality equipment. But again, why do we have to hate others for that? And I see so many people that, will make comments, well, don't waste your time, if that's the kind of guns you're going to get involved with. Or, again, the AR community that wants to, talk crap on grandpa who wants to hunt with a, bolt action rifle or, and what really got interesting for me looking at that is the lever action situation. Lever actions made a comeback and then everybody wanted a tactical lever actions. And, then you got people that, well, I'm a traditionalist and I don't want that crap and whatever. And again, I'm a big 1911 guy. I'm not shy about that. I love my 1911s. There's something about 1911s that I just appreciate and I love them and they're my niche. They're what I like. And I like to think a lot of the people that follow me on YouTube follow me for 1911's content because that's the kind of stuff that I post a lot about. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit here and talk crap on Glock owners. I was a big Glock guy for years. And a lot of people used to be, well, Glock or Smith & Wesson. But why do we have to divide ourselves? And I see that in a lot of my classes. I actually just had a student in my last G class that, he literally made the worst, best argument for Glock I've ever heard. And he's like, I just hate the gun, but, every time I pick one up, I shoot it so accurately and it's so reliable, but I just hate Glocks. And I'm like, okay, well, you're saying how awesome it is, but you're saying you hate them. Makes no sense to me. But, and I picked on him and we had some fun with it and all that kind of fun stuff. And when you look at all the, I did a driving rant talking about all the SIG, BS going on and on. Who gives a crap? People are buying SIGs. Whatever. Who the hell cares? They're in the gun community. If they're at the range training, encourage that. I'm all about it. But again, it's just we eat our own. But I'll be honest with you. Another thing, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this. All this pistol brace crap over the past couple years. Everybody was buying these pistol braces. And anybody who wants to sit there and say that they were buying them because of the handicap is full of shit. Everybody was buying pistol braces because it was an FU to the ATF. But then the second that they kept on poking that bear, and the bear finally said, screw you. You know what? We're going to ban pistol braces. Then the entire gun community lost their balls. Oh, well, what about all the handicapped veterans that, use pistol braces? And, that's what they're for. And it's like, dude, you've been doing all this crap for years and people were posting videos. Oh, I'm not shouldering my pistol brace. Like that freaking little brother or that little cousin over there, with the finger 2 inches from the face. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. But then when finally the ATF bit back, after being poked for years and years, everybody wants to get in an outrage. What about the handicap? What about... You know what? If you want to poke the bear, poke the bear. Own it. Own your bullshit. You know, and I don't want to get into the politics of them. You know, should SBRs be legal or not? I don't give a crap. I'll be honest with you, that's not a world I'm in. Do I think we should be restricted on what kind of guns we own? To a point, yeah. Because let's face it, people get reckless. You know, I am one of those, and maybe as an instructor, I'm a little jaded. I think you should be required to go through education to own a firearm. Just like before you get behind the wheel of a car, you should be required to go through some type of education to do so. I think you should have some level of education before you're allowed to own a firearm. And I know I'm going to get all the hoorah, you know, Second Amendment right, blah, blah, red, white, and blue. You know what? I'm sorry. I think you should have education before you own a firearm. I think you should be educated. I think that should be required. I wholeheartedly believe that. You know, do I think it's right that states charge high amounts of money to get concealed licenses and stuff like that? No, I think that's wrong. But I do believe you should have to go through some level of education before you have to own a firearm. You know, but again, you know, all these people that push, you know, for permitless carry and constitutional carry and all that, you know, here in Florida, you know, I'm a firearms instructor. I make my money spreading the word of firearms, teaching people. And you know how much it hurt me when permitless carry passed here in the state of Florida? But nobody cared about that. Nobody cared that it hurt gun ranges and instructors when these types of laws get passed. When you pass things that now require or eliminate the requirements for this education, even the bare minimum that it had, it hurts your own people that spread that word. But nobody thinks about that. But again, that's where the gun community is its own worst enemy. And the biggest thing that I will tell people where you are really being played as a community, and the gun community, again, is its own worst community or own worst enemy. And I brought this up in the SIG video. You think the government, because the Second Amendment is against a tyrannical government, correct? You think these companies that sell to the military and sell to the government are going to give up military sales and military contracts if shit hit the fan? Let's say we do have, we're going to overthrow the government. You really think SIG is going to back the freedom-loving Americans over the almighty dollar that they get from the government? And we are willing to go to bat for companies that would turn on us in a heartbeat. Think about that. You know, and that's one thing I will say that is another draw for me for 1911s. Because if you look at 1911 companies, typically this is boutique brands. You know, I love Alchemy as a company. I think they're advertising Eli over there. You know, everybody that they have as part of their company, Rob Sholin, now that he's gone and done his own thing. But when he was doing videos and some of the things he would talk about, you know, these are not guys that are sucked in to all the BS. You know, they're millennial sales guy. You know, just their whole way of operating as a company. They're not chasing government sales. They do support red-blooded Americans. And 1911 companies, a lot of your little small, you know, boutique brands of 1911s, you know, they're all about American rights. They're not about chasing government contracts. But you look at Beretta, you look at SIG, Glock, you look at any of these big names, Smith & Wesson, they would all turn on us in a heartbeat. All these companies that you shill for, or whatever the hell you want to call it, all of them would turn on us in a heartbeat if it meant military contract. And you got to be really freaking naive if you don't think that's the reality. Think about that for a second. But again, that's where the gun community is its own worst enemy. We separate ourselves when realistically we are one of the most attacked communities as a whole. You know, I tell everybody in my concealed classes, if you're buying a gun, you are signing up to be a politician. Because I don't know any politician in today's world that doesn't run on some type of gun right platform. What are they going to do for gun rights? So you're signing up to be a politician, being a gun owner. Well, guess what? You are shilling for the government when you support these big companies that have military contracts. Because again, when the shit hits the fan, if we were to rise up and go against the government, who do you think they're going to side with? Really think about that for a second. And maybe you need to change some of your loyalties to some of these brands. Daniel Defense. Look at these big AR companies that all you guys that love your BCMs and Daniel Defense and, you know, you want to sit there and talk crap on Palmetto State Armory. But you know what? Palmetto's not chasing government contracts. You can look at any of the podcasts or interviews that any of the Palmetto guys do, and the big thing that they're all about is putting a gun in the hands of every American. God forbid shit was to hit the fan. And I would sit here and argue all day long that if there is a company in the gun community that cares about our American rights more than any other company, it's probably Palmetto. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're a business and they're all about making the money, but they're not chasing. Look at the guns they make. You know, they look at all the handguns and the dagger and, you know, their little pulls that they do for SHOT Show. That is a company that is all about pushing guns in American hands. They don't care about trying to get military contracts, law enforcement contracts. They don't give a shit. Because they recognize, hey, we can sell that Daniel Defense stuff and still make money, but then we can sell our own stuff and make more money. And that's what they're all about. They're a smart business, but they support the Second Amendment more than others. You know, and Daniel Defense and Smith & Wesson and Beretta, you know, all of them can do their donations to NRA, Gun Owners of America, you know, Firearm Policy Coalition, all these groups that are for our gun rights. But when the rubber hits the road, when the shit hits the fan, who do you think they're going to side with? The government or with us? So that's your little duck rant for this wonderful week. And let me know how you're liking these videos, my little rants. Again, I've kind of stayed away from getting involved in some of the gun drama stuff, but I have opinions, damn it. And I'm going to throw my opinions out there because opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. And if everybody else can hop on YouTube and do all the drama, every now and then maybe I'll hop on here and do the same. We'll see how these kind of videos do. But again, I got a lot of time on the road these days, so I'm taking advantage of that too. So to be consistent with getting content to you guys. So hope everybody's being safe. Let me know in the comments. Let me know your opinion on this. This is a video that, out of all the videos I've posted, I'd probably be curious to hear your feedback the most. And kind of hear the different opinions. And maybe if I get enough feedback from you guys on this video, I'll do a follow-up video to this, kind of going through the comments, and we can do a rebuttal or maybe even do a YouTube live, you know, again, but throw in the comments, you know, throw a rebuttal out. I'm all about debate. I love talking it out, and I'd love to hear the opinions on this. So again, be safe. This is your boy the Duck saying quack quack. Make sure you're following me on all the socials. Again, the reason I'm not at the range as much these days is because if you haven't been keeping up with me on Instagram, I am taking over teaching for another company. And so if you're looking for any security related training, pretty much in Central Florida, anywhere from Orlando area all the way up to Daytona, I can probably accommodate your needs these days. So feel free to reach out and I'll get you information on that, or you can hop over to my Instagram and I got all the info on there, or my website, don'tbeasittingduck.com. But again, I hope this video finds everybody safe. Let's see your opinions on this one. Take care. Quack, quack. Later.